And welcome back to a conversation with author LeSEA Cherry. She's the author of Like a Flood. LeSEA, before the break, I was asking you, why is it that we cannot coexist? You said you were just radical, you were an activist, yet you thought you were a Christian. Why can't the two coexist?
Well, because light and dark are not going to stay in a place of peace. And Jesus made it clear. There will be a time, in the Old Testament, there'll be a time when the lion and the lamb will lay down and there won't be conflict. But as long as we're in this season of the church age, the wheat and the tares will be here, but it's not going to mix. And, you know, of course, humankind tried that at the Tower of Babel, to say we can all pull together, we can all, you know, come into oneness. And we'll see that force arise as we get closer to Jesus' return, where people will try to make that. But that's a counterfeit. And so we're going to have to make peace with that as believers. There's no such thing as a peaceful coexistence between those who believe in darkness and those who believe in light.
Now, with respect to Like a Flood, I heard that it was a dream that kind of influenced the book itself.
Yeah, back in August this past year, I had been pondering and asking the Lord some questions. How do we get our life ready? And He spoke to me through a dream that shook me to the core. And in the course of that dream, I was going to show up at this event. It would be like this speaking engagement of a lifetime, where I was going to speak to influential people. And when I got there, it was one of those horrible dreams where you just couldn't get there. And it got so bad in the dream that I finally just woke myself up. And as I was waking myself up, the Lord spoke to my heart. And like I say, it shook me. Can I read you just a sentence or two about what He said?
Sure.
I felt like He said, "You're not ready. The world has already changed in your midst. You can feel it, you know it. The flood waters are rising, and the pressure changes of the flood are revealing a serious flaw." Now, He was speaking to me, but also speaking to those that I would speak to. He said, just like LeSEA in the dream, you're floundering around with a half-baked message at the finest hour of your most holy calling. You've been caught with your hair down when you should have been like the 10 virgins in Matthew 25. Wow. And then He closed it with words of hope. He says, you're not going to make it unless you awaken to this fact, but take courage. If you will listen now, you have time to adjust. And I mean, I woke up physically shaking. And I didn't, it was one of those dreams where you didn't have to say, well, Lord, maybe not me, you know, and I felt like, Lord, I thought I've been preparing. I thought I've been digging into your word. And yet He revealed some places in me that needed to grow up. And so that's what inspired the book. And I began to say, God, how do we tap into your flood of courage, to your flood of hope? And then what specifically would we prepare? So there's 24 preparations in this book. Some of them are very practical. Some of them are spiritual. Things that I really believe that as believers we must attend to if we're going to be like the 5 wise virgins who are ready.
Can you speak to just a couple of those spiritual and a couple of the practical?
Yes. My first one that the Lord really gave me is to run to the arms of your Father. You know, we will not find answers, we will not find courage, we will not find it in militancy. We will find a loving Heavenly Father who is yearning to draw us in and then give us infused strength. Second is to banish discouragement from our life. You know, take that word discourage. No courage. We throw it around kind of like depression. Oh, I'm so discouraged today. But you know, we can't live discouraged lives. We're going to have to let the Lord mature us, just like Elijah had to find his place of courage to be able to come out of the cave and face what was in his midst. And I believe believers today, that's another one, to come out of the cave, wherever you've been hiding, whatever you've been thinking, I can't talk to my child, I can't talk to... See, this is not just a out there. This is up close. This is personal. Some of the practical preparations. Are you grounded in church history? You know, we sometimes don't talk about whether, you know, learning about history seems kind of dull, but you know, if we don't understand the saints and the battles they faced in the past and learn that the heresies going on today are nothing new, then we are potentially going to fall into them. Have we studied Islam for ourselves? Do we understand about how to rightly divide the word of truth and take our doctrine and go right into our pastor? Wouldn't it be amazing if people walked right into their pastor and say, Pastor, I believe I need to be grounded in doctrine. Can you help me? would that be
right?
Would that not shock our leaders? And yet, I believe that's what it's going to take if we're going to have the courage that we see in Chinese Christians, you know, who were willing to risk it to be underground. If we're going to have the courage, like our brothers and sisters who are willing to die rather than deny their faith in the Middle East, there's something deeper that the Lord's calling us to.
LeSEA, I know that you're a best-selling author and a speaker, but your family is totally involved in this. I mean, this is a message that you have a large family.
We do.
You and your husband, your children, I mean, you're taking this message around the world, aren't you? Around the country.
We do. We have 10 children, which is rather outlandish. We can just laugh at that because this is the former feminist lady, remember?
Right, yeah.
That the Lord changed our mind.
God has a sense of humor.
He has a sense of humor. And yet this is a family message. God deals with households. He's growing strong families right now. He's wanting to restore the family altar. That's one of our chapters. That's an old-fashioned term, you know,
That's right.
But yet the reformers knew this. The early people in America knew this. People realized what's in your home will become your foundation for your daily life.
Well, LeSEA, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us. To connect with LeSEA, you can go to likeaflood.org and get a copy of her new project, Like a Flood. And still to come, Pastor Mark Lance with today's Connections. But up next, Brian Bush with the latest news from Israel. We'll be right back.